Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a deeply unsettling chapter of history. We're going to unpack a 1984 Japanese corporate extortion and kidnapping case that literally paralyzed a nation's entire food supply. We're exploring the shadows of a totally unidentified criminal syndicate, a group that famously became known as the Monster with 21 Faces. It's honestly a masterclass in psychological terror, and it remains one of the most baffling cold cases of the modern era.
And this quote right here brilliantly illustrates exactly who we're dealing with. Even Sherlock Holmes couldn't beat us. This arrogant, taunting message was sent directly to the police by the syndicate themselves. It perfectly establishes their whole vibe, you know? They weren't just criminals, they were performers. They viewed the authorities as basically their unwitting co-stars in this massive, real-world game of cat and mouse.
So, how did this whole nightmare kick off? Let's set the scene. It's March 18th, 1984, right around 9 p.m., a quiet, perfectly serene evening in the city of Nishinomiya in Japan's Osaka prefecture. But that peace, it's about to be violently shattered by a highly calculated home invasion. The timeline of this break-in was incredibly precise and, frankly, terrifying. First, two masked men, armed with a pistol and a rifle, broke into the home of a 70-year-old woman. They tied her up and then stole a key to the house right next door. That was the home of her son, Katsuhisa Isaki. Now, Isaki was the 42-year-old president of Isaki Glico, which is a multi-million-dollar Japanese confectionery giant. The masked men entered his main house, tied up his wife and eldest daughter, totally ignored their offers of money, and snatched Isaki while he was bathing with his other children. They dragged him into the night, completely naked. The very next day, they dropped a bombshell that revealed the staggering scale of this crime: 1 billion yen. That was the massive ransom demand left inside a brown envelope in a public phone booth, along with the demand for 100 kilograms of gold bullion, just for good measure. And the kidnappers made it explicitly clear any police involvement whatsoever would result in Isaki's immediate death. But then the story takes this sudden, shocking turn. Just 65 hours later, Isaki pulls off a daring escape. He'd been held captive in this small, isolated warehouse in Ibaraki, tied up in a black overcoat and a ski hat. Miraculously, he somehow managed to loosen his bindings, literally kick down a warehouse door, and escape to find help from a couple of railway workers. But while he was finally free, he could provide the police with absolutely zero clues about who his captors actually were. Now, you might think the escape would end the terror, right? Nope, not even close. The syndicate instantly escalated from kidnapping to full-blown corporate sabotage. In April, they sent hydrochloric acid to the Isaki family. A few days after that, a tall, masked man wearing a golf cap and carrying a Boston bag used gasoline-soaked cloths to set fire to Glico's headquarters. That blaze destroyed over 160 square meters of the facility. And a week later, even more acid was found inside another Glico building. And throughout all of this escalating violence, the monster was actually writing letters. They sent these messages to newspapers written in hiragana and a distinct Osaka dialect, just brazenly mocking the authorities. "Dear dumb police officers," they wrote, taunting the investigators for their total inability to catch them. They'd even offer these totally useless hints about their getaway car or where they bought groceries, treating a massive national police dragnet like it was just a total joke. By June 1984, out of nowhere, the monster declared they forgave Glico. But wow, the relief was incredibly short-lived. They immediately pivoted and expanded their extortion ring to terrorize other major food corporations across Japan. We're talking huge names like Maridai Ham, House Food Corporation, and the massive confectionery brand Morinaga. Which brings us to arguably the most chilling document in the entire case, a letter addressed directly to the moms of the nation. The monster warned that they had laced 20 packages of Morinaga candy with lethal toxins and just left them on grocery store shelves all the way from Hakata to Tokyo. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter, they wrote. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids. You can imagine the sheer nationwide panic this caused. Police were frantically scouring grocery stores across all of Japan. Miraculously, they actually found the tampered choco balls and angel pies before anyone was killed. But here's the crazy part. They only found them because the perpetrators had bizarrely stuck physical warning labels to the boxes, literally reading, "Danger contains toxins." And I need to stress this point.
This was absolutely no bluff. The threat was 100% real. When investigators tested those recovered candies, they confirmed the presence of lethal, deadly doses of sodium cyanide and potassium cyanide. If a child had eaten one of those without a label on it, they would have died. No question.
The contrast between the physical threat and the devastating corporate fallout was just staggering. While they only recovered 21 of those lethal packages, the economic terror basically brought titans of industry to their knees. Massive public boycotts led Morinaga to cut its production by an astonishing 90%. Glico reported a total decrease in sales of nearly $130 million. They had to lay off hundreds of workers. The monster was systematically dismantling some of Japan's most robust businesses.
But there was a deeply tragic human cost to the authorities as well. By August 1985, the investigation was at a total standstill. The rigid, face-saving hierarchy of the Japanese police system placed unbearable shame and pressure on senior command officers. Shiga Prefecture Police Superintendent Shoji Yamamoto, having failed to capture a suspect in his jurisdiction, basically took this entire burden upon himself. In a devastating climax to all of that pressure, Superintendent Yamamoto walked into a courtyard at the police headquarters, doused himself in kerosene, and committed suicide by self-immolation. And how did the syndicate react to this? With shocking, almost incomprehensible cruelty. They wrote, "No career Yamamoto died like a man, so we decided to give our condolence." In that exact same letter, dated August 12, 1985, the syndicate declared that because of Yamamoto's death, they would just forget about torturing food companies. They ended their correspondence with one chilling final thought: "It's fun to lead a bad man's life." And just like that, the monster with 21 faces vanished completely into the shadows, never to be heard from again.
The prime suspects and leading theories.
So, let's look at the suspects. Two unidentified men really became the faces of this investigation. First, you have the videotaped man. He was caught on a security camera wearing a Yomiuri Giants baseball cap, casually placing tampered Glico chocolate on a store shelf. He was never identified. Second, and honestly much more infamous, is the fox-eyed man, who repeatedly tailed investigators during those tense, secret ransom drops. Let's zoom in on this fox-eyed man for a second. Undercover police described him as a large, well-built man wearing sunglasses, with short permed hair and distinct eyes like those of a fox. During multiple secret money exchanges on local trains for both Marudeham and House Food Corporation, investigators actually spotted him watching them. But incredibly, he managed to slip through their fingers and elude capture every single time. That specific description led the Tokyo Metropolitan Police to investigate a guy named Manabu Miyazaki. He was the son of a known Yakuza boss, and, he bore a striking resemblance to the police sketches of the fox-eyed man. Plus, Miyazaki had actually been involved in a labor dispute with Glico a decade prior. It looks suspicious, right? But despite all these compelling connections, investigators firmly cleared him after his alibis completely checked out. So if it wasn't a Yakuza vendetta, what was the real motivation here? Well, a leading criminological theory suggests the syndicate's true goal wasn't mass murder. After all, they did warn the public with those labels. Instead, many believe this was a highly sophisticated act of financial terrorism. By tanking corporate stock prices, Morinaga stock dropped 22 cents immediately after the poisonings, for example, the perpetrators could have easily shorted the stocks and walked away with massive, totally untraceable profits. Regardless of their true identity, their legacy is absolutely undeniable. It's the ultimate cold case, but it also forever changed Japanese corporate crisis management. The sheer terror of product tampering forced the entire food industry to adapt overnight. It directly led to the invention of the tamper-evident packaging and vacuum seals that we all rely on to keep our food safe today. But as for justice, well, unfortunately, the Japanese legal system has a ticking clock. In June 1995, the statute of limitations for the kidnapping of Katsuhisa Isaki expired. And then, in February 2000, the statute for the attempted poisonings ran out too. This legally guarantees that whoever the monster with 21 faces actually was, they can never be prosecuted for these crimes. And the scale of that failure is just unfathomable. Over 1 million police officers were involved in this investigation over the years. They chased down more than 28,000 tips and investigated nearly 125,000 persons of interest. Out of all of that immense national effort, all those resources, 0 suspects were ever charged. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. We know the corporate legacy, and we certainly know the tragic human cost. But it leaves us with this profound, really haunting question. In a system bound by time, when the statute of limitations finally expires and the law can no longer touch you, where exactly does the guilt go? Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay curious.
Every case has a story. See you in the next investigation.